Welcome to the 1 in 50 podcast from the Brain Aneurysm Foundation. I'm your grateful host, Christine Buckley, and for the past 2 decades, I've had the privilege of working with families, survivors, and caregivers, as well as the leading physicians and researchers to help combat this disease. The Foundation's goal is big, but very important, to create a world free of death and disability from brain aneurysms. This podcast aims to provide perspectives from those who have joined us in this mission and what needs to be done to get there. We hope the 1 in 50 podcast will broaden awareness of a disease that can strike instantly, yet is also highly treatable when found early. So knowing the signs and symptoms of a brain aneurysm can be the difference between life and death. Raising awareness is key to preventing aneurysms before they rupture. But when they do, we want to ensure people know there's a community waiting to provide support. Please know this podcast won't provide medical advice. That's only for your doctor. The 1 in 50 is the number of people living every day with an unruptured aneurysm, which is equal to 6.8 million people in the U.S. A rupture occurs every 18 minutes, and half those people who rupture will die. These statistics need to change. So we hope this 1 in 50 podcast, which will be full of amazing guests, reaches the people who don't know they need to know about brain aneurysms, so tragedy can be spared and lives saved. So if you listen to this podcast, please share it and visit the Foundation's website at bafound.org for more information. Thank you. Welcome, everybody. I'm super excited for this first podcast, the 1 in 50, coming from the Brain Aneurysm Foundation. And I have learned along the way, my limitations. So to kick off this first podcast, I have a professional. It's Scot Langley, better known as Froggy, from the nationally syndicated Elvis Duran in the Morning Show, as well as country music DJ at WQIK Radio in Jacksonville, Florida. Froggy's a brain aneurysm survivor and has since become an amazing advocate for research and awareness with an annual golf tournament, Froggy's Drive for Research, which brings in a lot of major country music stars. So in this podcast, we're going to speak with Froggy about his journey, his recovery, and what he's learned about this disease. So again, Froggy, thank you so much for being the first guest on this new podcast series with the Brain Aneurysm Foundation. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. I'm nervous. It's nowhere to go but up from here.
I don't know about that. But anyway, I know you're a busy man. So with your radio hosting, appearances, and family, how do you juggle all that?
You know what it is? It's a lot. And, but at the same time, this is something that's very important to me. I do feel like everything happens for a reason. And I feel that having the footprint that I have through the Elvis Duran show and through the country music community allows me to shine a light on brain aneurysms. So I went through a very traumatic injury, was very blessed to be able to get on the other side of it and still be able to live a really what I believe to be a fairly normal life. Yet at the same time, I want to take the time that I do have to advocate for people who don't have the footprint and the spotlight that I have and the voice that I have, because we can help people. And that is really what it's all about. So that's why I have done the golf tournament that you guys have been so amazing to help with. I believe we've done 4 of them. Is it 3 or 4? We've done 4. We've done 4 of them. And I mean, it really, 4. Truly is. Yeah. It's something I enjoy doing. It's great. Raises money for a good cause. And we have a lot of fun doing it. But at the same time, it's great to be able to help people, whether they can or cannot help themselves. It's great to shine a light and talk about aneurysms.
Yeah, no, thank you. Again, you've been amazing, but also a little bit more on your background. Being in the radio industry, is this something that you always wanted to do?
I did. It's funny. I was actually having the same conversation with someone last night. There was always music on in my house. I realized I was driving home last night and was kind of scanning around on a playlist. And there's a song, I looked it up. It was from the 70s. It was a Styx song, but I knew every single word to. My parents turned on music all the time. And so I grew up with the radio. The radio was always on. It was my companion at night when I would go to sleep and I was by myself in the room. The radio was my companion. And so I always enjoyed radio. And I think that's what I ended up doing.
Awesome. And what does it take to succeed in this business? Because, you have an amazing career.
Well, it's changed a lot. It really has. And that's the thing, is adapting to change. Too often we get, and I'm as guilty as anybody else. We get stuck into, I've always done it this way, and this is the way it's always been. Well, it doesn't matter. You have to be able to adapt to change. And with technology, it's really adapted, and it's made radio to be able to do things that we couldn't do before. The fact that I can have a studio in my home and do this podcast with you at home, and don't have to go to a podcast studio. And I mean, just it's changed so much, so drastically. And at the end of the day, we've all learned a lot, and it's really made radio a better thing because of people who've adapted to change. And people who don't adapt, they get left behind. And that's really the case in any industry, not just radio.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I mean, I can imagine the changes that you have been through, and it happens so much in medicine, well, even treatment of brain aneurysm. So now I kind of want to dive into the thick of things and why we're here. Again, the 1 in 50. Tell us how you were introduced to brain aneurysms and what your biggest concerns were and how you felt when you first heard the term.
So my journey here is a little strange. I had a rare disease in 2010. I had a brain tumor on my pituitary gland. And so I had that operated on in 2010. And when I wasn't feeling well in early 2020 during the pandemic, I went to the doctor, and I said, "Hey, I think that's the problem." And they looked at it and they said, "Nope, everything's fine there. We've got something else." And so they did scans and sent me somewhere else and did more scans. And then I was, by the grace of God, introduced to a man named Dr. Brian Ho at Shands Hospital, the
Yeah.
University of Florida in Gainesville. And he sat me down and explained to me what a brain aneurysm was, and told me that the dangerous size of a brain aneurysm was at 8 millimeters. Mine was at a little greater than 7. And we had no baseline. We didn't know if I was at 6 the day before or if I had been at 7 for a year. We had no baseline. So we scheduled
Right.
a surgery, and he explained to me everything that we had to do. And a week later, he went in, and we had a successful clipping of brain aneurysm on the right side of my head.
Yeah, it's amazing. And you are so fortunate to have Dr. Ho, because I know him. He was up here in Boston at one time, but also to have the treatment there at Gainesville at Shands, because it's an amazing place, and they're doing great work, not just in treatment, but on the research, as you probably know.
Right.
So, what kind of impact did this have on your life after the fact? And I don't know the answer to the second part, because I was going to ask, do you worry about a second aneurysm? And maybe you have one, maybe you already know that, because that does happen in a lot of cases.
I do. So to answer the first question, the recovery was tough. I had my surgery done on October 12th of 2020, a date I'll remember for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
I don't remember anything from that day. I went in at 7:15 in the morning. They did the surgery. I have no recollection of time whatsoever until Tuesday morning. The recovery was long. The first place I really went after was not until February of 21. So from October to the beginning of
Yeah.
February was recovery time. It was tough. It was very difficult, but I was very blessed and lucky that I do not have a lot of remaining symptoms, which has been great. As far
Yeah.
as the second part of the question, I do have a second aneurysm, and they found that when they found the first one. So the one that was fixed
Okay.
was on the right side; it was clipped. On the left side, I do have a smaller aneurysm. When we found it, it was 1.2 millimeters. Once again, the
Yeah.
the danger is when you get into the 5, 6, 7, and at 8, they rupture. We just keep track of it with scans, and it's currently still at the 1.2 to 1.3 mark. So not really
That's
concerned about it,
great.
but something that we keep an eye on because they start small and grow. And so that'll be a decision that Dr. Ho and I
Right.
will make down the road.
All right. Thank you. Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, I can't imagine, knowing that after having had surgery and then
It's
thinking
weird.
of that other one. But yeah,
It
I
does.
guess,
You,
yeah.
you get a headache, and it's the
Right.
first thing you think, "Oh my God, it's growing, it's bigger." And you
Yeah.
think it could be this, it could be that. But I always say this, that on that Monday that I had my surgery, I woke up on that Monday and I was nervous. Dr. Ho woke up on that Monday and he did what he does every Monday. Monday's his surgery day. And so
Correct.
he said to me, he said, "If you put me in front of a microphone and told me I had to do a 4-hour morning show," he said, "I would be super nervous." He said, "But it's what you do every day." And so I had to put the trust into him, and that's what he does. And he did an amazing job. And I trust his decision making moving forward. because that's what he does.
Correct.
So you find a professional. And I find that with anything, whether it's a plumber or it's a mechanic of your car, find somebody who you trust. That's what they do. Let them do what they do. And then you can't worry about it. I also try to believe that there's so many things in life that we spend time, like I think about myself. I'll spend a lot of time sometimes worrying about something and what I call worst case scenario spiraling. And you think about
Right.
how many times none of that stuff happens. And so I try to remember that even with this, that yes, it's there. We deal with it. I've spoken to a professional. I have his opinion, which is way more than my opinion. And we move
Right.
forward that way. And if you do that with a lot of things, it will take a lot of the stress out and undo worrying.
Yeah, no, totally agree. You're fortunate that you are able to do that because some people definitely struggle with that. I
Oh,
was
it's
just
not easy.
curious, do you know? No, definitely not. Do you have a family history of brain aneurysms? Because sometimes about 25% of the time they are in families. No.
I don't. Nobody in my family that I'm aware of has
Well,
ever
that's good,
had a
right?
brain
Let's hope
aneurysm
it
that I'm
stays
aware of.
that way.
The things that cause brain, and here's what's even strange is the things that cause brain aneurysms. I don't smoke. I don't do any of the things
Right.
that lead up to them. But that doesn't mean you can't have them. You can not be prone and still have it. And so it's just, and once again, at the end of the day,
No,
and I've
absolutely.
been talking about this since when I had the original rare disease in 2010, is you're your own best advocate. Nobody knows your body the way you do. And if something doesn't feel right and you think something's wrong, you have to advocate for yourself. And that is the most
100%.
important thing you can do.
100%. And that's the hard thing with this disease. There's still so many unknowns. Like if you have it, why did it develop? How did it develop? Will it rupture and when? And it does. It makes it very difficult for not only the patient, but for the families to wrap their head around it and how to move forward each day. And
Yeah.
you have been very public, gratefully, and we appreciate it talking about this disease because, again, early detection matters so much, and the awareness and education is just a huge portion of what needs to continue to prevent other people from going through this. I mean, you're fortunate, but there's a lot of loss. There's people who have so many disabilities and really struggle after the fact. But with being so public about it, do people connect you to the disease, and are there any particular questions that people ask you about it?
I do. I always have people. It's funny. I was with a country music artist just yesterday, and I was telling him about the story and what we do and all this other stuff. Because I'm always trying to, number one, always trying to get the word out and always working for the next tournament that we're doing. And the number one
Yeah,
question people always ask me is, "How did you know? What did you feel?" And it's different with
yeah.
everyone. There is no telltale sign. There is no telltale trigger. With me, I just knew I didn't feel right. I was having some strange headaches and things weren't correct. And so
Yeah.
I went to the doctor, and that's where the self advocate comes in. You have to advocate for yourself. If you don't feel right, keep searching until you get an answer that you are happy with, that you feel is
Mhm.
correct, and that you feel is thorough. And I mean, that's really where it comes from.
And again, in your profession and what you do, obviously speech is a big part. And also, a lot of people have, some people can't go back to work. And oftentimes there's a stigma around the disease and having a brain injury. Did you ever have any concerns with going back to such a, public job where you are speaking every day? Or were you
I
treated
did. I mean,
differently at
at
all when you returned
first,
to work?
yeah, because at first I had what I was so swollen. My face was very swollen. Like I've got some,
Mhm.
I got pictures where my eyes were almost both swollen shut and everything. And so I was
Wow.
concerned. And then in the beginning, I would have words I knew what word I wanted to use, but I couldn't remember the word to say it. And so that was a concern at first. But with time that got better. And that's the thing, is that the old saying of time heals a lot of things is true. It does.
Yeah.
You just have to be patient with yourself because it is traumatic. You're going through a lot, and you don't it's very difficult for the doctors to explain exactly. Everybody recovers differently at a different pace. Another thing
Yeah.
I always try to remember, I read this great quote the other day that said comparison is the thief of joy. And it really is. You can't
I
compare
like that.
yourself to
Yeah.
who you used to be, because you will have a new norm. You also can't compare yourself to anybody
Yeah.
else's recovery because everybody recovers differently. So you got to give yourself grace. You got to give yourself patience. You have to do the best you can. And I wouldn't say that I feel 100% the way I did before, because I don't. But I'm also 5 years older than I was when
Yeah.
I had my aneurysm. It
Right.
will be 5 years this October. But I've done really, really well. I'm very proud of how far I've come. Um, those days right after, I will tell you, the days right after the surgery, those are dark days. And you feel like you're never going to feel good
Yeah.
again. But I can tell you, you will feel great again. You just have to give yourself grace and patience and time. And don't beat yourself up. And don't try to do
Yeah.
too much too soon, because I was guilty of that as well.
No, I mean, that is so true. And again, I know since I've been to your golf tournament, I've met your family, you're fortunate, not only just your family, but your friends, the support that you had
Oh,
is critical too. I mean, you need
the
people to
luckiest
be
person
understanding,
alive to
to
have the
be
people
there
around
for
me that
you.
I have. I mean, without my wife and my son and my parents, and then
Yeah.
my extended family, my work family, the people that your friends in your life that will do anything for you, those people are the reason I made it through. Because without that, there were a lot of really dark times that you just are like, I can't do this another day. I can't go another 24 hours and feel this way. And the people around you, they're suffering too. Maybe not physically, but it hurts watching somebody suffer. And I can tell you, I had a really, really good support system that helped pull me through those days back in October of 2020.
Yeah, that caregiver role is tough for your closest people to you because, like you said, when it happened to you, when you're knocked out and you don't really remember those first few days after the fact, they're there watching it, and it's awfully scary for them too. Which is why,
It is.
again, for them, people like that to have the education, know there's a place to go for more information and a resource. It does make a big difference.
It is,
And
because it's
again, we
very
call this
helpless.
podcast the one.
It's helpless as a
Yeah,
caregiver to
totally.
not be able to take care of somebody that you love, to not be able to
Yeah.
fix whatever's ailing them. And it's very helpless. And so that was very difficult. But at the same time, you just, once again, time will make it better. And you just have to be
Yeah.
patient and understand that time is the only thing that's really going to help. And be patient with the people around you as much as you can as well.
So again, the 1 in 50 is for 2% of the population who are walking around with an unruptured brain aneurysm. Does it surprise you that more people are not aware of this? And again, I don't think you were aware until you had the diagnosis.
No, you're exactly right. Is that it's funny. Your life tends to drive your experiences and your knowledge. So I never knew the first thing about brain aneurysms. However, when it became my life, I tried to learn as much as I could. And so that's why
Right.
now I'm trying to educate as many people so that when they get in that moment, I remember where I was that day that the doctor looked at me and said, "You have a brain aneurysm." You instantly go to, this is catastrophic. It's the end for me.
Bad
That
place.
was the initial thought I had when you hear that word. The truth is, it doesn't have to be. And so you catch it early, you do the things you're supposed to do. And by the way, every surgery is not like mine. I had to have a craniotomy where they go in and
Right.
basically take the top right side of my head off and went in. With technology, they've come so far
Yeah.
from 2020 to where they are now. They could do it through your wrist. They can do it through your groin. So there are other ways, and technology and research is making it so that it's a much easier recovery and a much easier process, a much safer process than it was even just 5
Yeah.
years ago. And so that's why research and what's being done at the Brain Aneurysm Foundation and other places and Dr. Ho and his team of research is so super important, because we're learning new treatments every single day, so that now what before was a really difficult long surgery can now be done much less invasive and in much less time.
Yeah, no, it's so true. And, we always tell people, if you are fortunate to have a scan and find out you have an aneurysm before it's ruptured, you're so far ahead of the game because, like you said, the treatments just keep getting better and better and better. But people need to know that they have one to get those treatments. So, I mean, that's
Right.
again, it comes back to early detection and education.
Yeah. Early
And you mentioned
detection is so
research.
key. It's so key in
Yeah.
a brain aneurysm, just because if you wait until it is too long, I was very lucky. So there's I'm not sure exactly what the medical term is, but they call it a daughter sac that forms around
Yeah.
an aneurysm that has basically semi-ruptured, and it's like a last holding bubble before it ruptures. I had a daughter sac.
Oh,
That is
wow.
extremely rare. That that
Yeah.
that one piece saved me. If that ruptured, where my
Amazing.
aneurysm was, I would have had a really, really tough time. And so
Yeah, that's
I was very
amazing.
lucky. So early detection is everything. And once again, that goes back to self-advocating. If you don't feel right, if something's not good, you have to get yourself checked. And that leads us down other roads of scans and becoming healthcare becoming more affordable, and insurance companies not fighting
Yep.
us on scans that they see as voluntary. Scanning for a
Right.
brain aneurysm is not really voluntary. I don't know of anybody that said, "Hey,
No.
you know what? It's a good Saturday. Why don't we go get scanned for a brain aneurysm? That sounds like fun."
Yeah.
That's not.
Yeah,
But yet
definitely not.
lives can be saved if we make it so that these scans are something that are part of, whether it's a yearly checkup or every 5 years they check, or it's ways to do things that we could save a lot of people.
As the foundation, we are working on that to try to make it more accessible, that if there is someone in the family that's had an aneurysm, to not wait for a second occurrence, but to scan that family. So, you don't, why wait, right? Again, the
Right.
treatments are there, the treatments are fabulous. And the other thing is with research, there are researchers from a couple of different institutions working on a blood-based biomarker. And if that ever comes to be too, and we can, determine this through a blood test, much more accessible and much more
Wow.
cost effective. I mean, that would be amazing too.
That's groundbreaking.
So yeah, no. So back to your golf tournament. What made you want to do that? What was the impetus to get that going and support research?
Well, I've been really bad at golf for a long time. So I have no issue there. However, you always see there's golf tournaments all over the place that are raising money. And so when it happened, I initially wanted to do something to help. And I remember speaking with Dr. Ho, and I said, "What are some things that I can do once I'm on the other side of this?" And he had asked me if I played golf. I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, you could do a golf tournament." And I knew that Dr. Ho was on the board at the Brain Aneurysm Foundation. And so he was able to link me and let me know about. But I'll be honest, when I did research, one of the first things that pops up is the Brain Aneurysm Foundation. So I read about what
That's
you
good to
guys do,
hear.
and
Yeah,
then we kind of put it all together. And then there was not a fundraiser here in the Southeast that you guys do. I know you do fundraisers all over the country,
right.
but there wasn't one here in the Southeast. And so there was an opportunity there for us to do one here because there wasn't already one being done. Dr. Ho is just an hour away, hour and a half away down the road. He comes every year, he plays, he supports, he brings other doctors in. Um, and I do have the ability through work to be able to connect with country artists. So now we have country artists come and perform. Um, People play golf. It's a good time. And at the same time, we're raising money for a really, really good cause.
Yeah, you've supported now probably 3 or 4 years of research, so it is
That's
amazing, and I
awesome.
can't thank you enough. And your connection to country music is pretty wild. Is there anyone you're hoping comes this coming year that hasn't
We've
come
been
yet?
talking to a few guys. I just had somebody here in concert in Jacksonville last night. Brett Young was here, and we talked to Brett about it. So we're
Oh well.
trying to kind of nail that down. But the country music community in general, and by and large, is a very loving and giving community, and they love to help.
Yeah.
Whether it's through charitable resources, we do stuff every year towards the end of the year for St. Jude and Children's Research, cancer research. But the country music community wants to help. And anytime you explain to them,
Yeah.
it's a charitable event. We do this, this, and that. They're always like, "How can I help? What can I do?" We do signed guitars every year by some of the biggest artists, and it's nothing to. Last year I believe we had Morgan Wallen, Kenny Chesney, Jason
Yeah.
Aldean, some of the biggest stars in
I mean,
country
that's
music.
crazy.
Yeah, you tell
Yeah,
them,
that's
"Hey,
wild.
I've got a event we're doing. Would you mind signing a guitar so we can auction it off?" And the biggest stars in our industry can't say yes fast enough. That's why
That's
it
amazing.
really it
Well, I think
makes
it
it
speaks to you as
much
well,
easier.
though, that the person you are. I mean, I think
Well,
that
thank
wins
you.
them over. I don't think just anyone can make that ask. So,
Well, thank you. I appreciate
again,
that. But
just
the country
yeah,
music community wants to help, and that's why it's
yeah.
great to be able to have access to these people and then be able to kind of turn that into research for our brain aneurysms.
Awesome. So I was going to ask, what's the one thing you would want people to know about brain aneurysms?
Well, that there's not always the telltale signs. Like if you have the flu,
Mhm.
it's like when you have a sore throat and you have a fever, there are telltale signs. With brain aneurysms, there aren't, except if you don't feel right. Now, I'm not advocating for everybody to self-diagnose by any means, because
No, I
self-diagnosis can lead you
understand.
down a really dark place. Don't do it. I'm speaking from
Right.
experience. But go to the doctor, do your scans, take care of yourself. It really truly is important to do these things, because
Hmm.
if you wait too long on a brain aneurysm, it can be too late. And you may never know you had one, but your family will know. And that's what's sad. And
Right.
that's what I remember Dr. Ho always said, they're the silent killers. Often
Yeah.
the person who has the aneurysm never knows. The family has to live
I know it's
with the
awful.
fact that they're gone. And
Yeah.
so early detection is everything. And brain aneurysms are
Yeah.
not something to wait on.
No, absolutely. The one thing I like to tell people is that they're treatable. So to your
Yeah,
point, if you have
they are.
signs and symptoms, you're concerned, and particularly neck up, reach out to your doctor and
Yeah.
don't
I
feel
mean,
like you're bothering your doctor. And
right.
I think from all the people we've talked to, they've known when someone has even sometimes gone to a doctor and been sent home without doing a scan because the doctor isn't even thinking of it. Be your best advocate because you're feeling different. I mean, most people aren't going to go to the doctors with some of these symptoms, but it's that feeling different and sensations they've never had before, either with headache, vision pain, neck pain. So to your point, yeah, go to the doctor. That's what they're there for, and ask some questions.
Yeah. I mean,
And
that's a
one,
great point that you just said. Left alone, they can be catastrophic. They can
yeah,
also be treated. And every
yeah,
surgery doesn't have to be, if you've seen somebody who has had a brain aneurysm surgery, like I did, a craniotomy, you will look at that and go, oh my goodness, I can never do that. And I had that same thought, but I did. But the truth is, all treatments aren't the same. So left
no,
alone, it could be really bad. Treated,
right,
it could be really easy, and it could be
yeah.
life saving. That's what's important.
No. I want to just thank you so much again, just for being the advocate that you are, always being willing to speak out and to give back. And more importantly, for being the first person to be the guest on this 1 in 50 podcast. And this is all about education and awareness. We're going to pump this out as best we can. I don't know a good follow up guest to you, but we're working on that. But in all honesty, for the 1 in 50, for the 30,000 ruptures a year, where half those people die, we just want people to know there's a community here at the Brain Aneurysm Foundation. Please go to bafound.org. We go into Capitol Hill on May 7th this year, seeking more funding for research. That might be a battle just in general, but we're going. And, we have our own research grant symposium. That's going to be September 11th in Scottsdale, Arizona. Last year, we gave out $640,000 in research grants, some of that funded by your tournament, Froggy. So there's a lot going on. But again, the key is early detection, to know the facts and to share those with people, because by sharing this information, we can all save a life.
It is, and thanks for having me. I appreciate it, and I'm honored to do this. Once again, I said early on, is I feel like everything happens for a reason, and so if
Yeah.
the reason for me doing this and then making it through is to be able to help people, then I am more than happy, and I'll do anything I can from now until the end of time, and until we find what is. I hate to use the word cure, but until we find a way that
I
nobody
know.
dies from a brain aneurysm, and until then we will keep doing this and finding ways. And early detection really truly is the biggest key. That is the number one thing.
Yeah,
Making we can find them sooner
absolutely.
and then
Yeah.
easier treatments.
And like you said, the end goal is a world without death or disability from brain aneurysm. So
Yep.
hopefully we'll see that day. But again, big thank you. Truly appreciate it. And we got to share the heck out of this.
You got it. Thank you so much. I will do it as well. And if I can help you in any way, of course, I am never more than a phone call away.